Straight from Hiroshi Yamauchi's tea room, it's Strictly Game Boy, the podcast with a red battery light. I'm your host, Bryan, and I am joined by my co-host, Clay.
Man, you have all the quips, don't you?
Yeah, I know things.
Deep cuts.
Yes.
All the deep cuts. Yeah, Bryan, that's something about you that I've always been fascinated with more than anything is you have these references that I don't understand. And then usually you spend, the following minutes explaining them or showing me where they're from.
Yeah, it does me no good in life.
Yeah, it's just you're very cultured and you're like a library of references and things. So it's always a good time. You must be fun at parties.
No, they throw me out. They don't invite me anymore.
All right. Well, this has already taken a turn. Man. All right. Well, what is today? Episode 5?
Yes, it would be episode 5.
All right, we're kind of moving through here. We're going to be in the double digits before you know it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, dude, so what are we doing today, man? I feel like we just came off a real good game. Last week we talked about, after we got done talking about Mario, that we were going to talk about a specific game. We decided to hold off on that because it is, from what we can tell, pretty terrible, but we want to learn it a little better.
Yeah. I think kind of bashing our head into it for a couple days is probably not the best way to deal with that game. So
all in due time.
So we'll that will be forthcoming. I think we should just start taking a look at it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But until that time, we have a great episode for you today. We're taking a look at Arcade Classics number 4, Defender and Joust. So let's go. All right, so first off, hey, Clay, why don't you tell us a bit about the facts about this game, I guess?
Yeah, a couple, just kind of getting the basics out of the way here. So, for those of you who aren't familiar, this game was developed by Williams, who are, a studio that makes arcade games, basically. So they made this specific game. Not the entire series. We'll talk about that in a second. It was published by Nintendo, and so as far as we can tell, kind of Nintendo kind of threw this all together, more or less. Not making the game, but the whole idea. I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. It was released in October of 1995. So we're not sure on a specific day, but we do know that it was released in October of that year. As to whether or not this is a port or an original, obviously these fall into the port category. These are ports of existing arcade games. I assume there was probably other versions of these games at that point. There was probably Atari games.
I would say that like Atari or personal computer games in the 80s, stuff like that. It's probably, Defender being one of the most popular arcade games ever. I'm sure it was on everything people could squeeze it onto.
Oh, totally. Yeah, so this wasn't a first port by any means for these games, I would imagine. I'm sure this could have been way further down the line as far as like versions of this game go. But
I think that probably people weren't porting them anymore, and so a lot of these games with the classic series is, Nintendo published them because, hey, 15-year-old arcade games would probably work on our little limited system. So let's start talking to people and let's get a little 8-game series going on here. Well, 4-game, but with 2 games each. So.
Right. Yeah, and so, but to its defense, this might have been the first time you could actually take these games with you on the go.
That's true. Unless there's some crappy Tiger handheld somewhere that's just like, this is Joust, which didn't work.
Right, which would just be really bad. I used to play a Pac-Man thing like that lit up, and it was just straight garbage. I remember that. Yeah.
It's the Tony Hawk 1 of Pac-Man portable games.
Yes. All right. So, Bryan, can you explain to the listeners what this whole series is, this Arcade Classics? It's pretty straightforward, but I just want to make sure everybody understands. Because for some reason, we decided to pick number 4 instead of starting at number 1 with these. We jumped to...
I think I was behind the picking of number 4 because I like Eugene Jarvis games, and I like Williams games, so I just kind of wanted to play some Defender and Joust.
Well, it worked out because, and this goes into my history with the game, but this is the only one of the 4 that I actually own. So
okay.
It worked out really well. I didn't
Cool.
realize it at first, but as soon as I started playing, I'm like, yep, I definitely had this, because the art looked familiar, but the art for all 4 games kind of looks similar. It's got that neon green, and so I was like, okay, this definitely looks familiar. And then once I booted it up, I'm like, yeah, I had this. But
I had one of the other ones. I can't remember right off the top of my head.
Okay.
But yeah, this whole series I think was just thrown together by Nintendo because it's got to be cheap and easy to port these games. Not port them; they have to be like remade for the Game Boy. But they found some people to throw together 2 of their best games and put them on one Game Boy cart and paid for the publishing. I guess Namco published theirs in Japan, but Nintendo took care of it outside of Japan.
Pretty much everywhere else, yeah.
The first 2 in the series are both Atari titles, so there's 4 of them. Do you have those up right now?
Oh, no.
So we have Centipede, Millipede, Asteroids, and Missile Command. I can't remember which one comes first. I know Centipede and Millipede are on one cart together, but...
Right. Yeah, I can pull up the list right here. I've got it right in front of me now. So number 1 was Asteroids Missile Command.
Okay, that's the one I had.
Okay.
So I had number 1.
Which is not a bad combo there.
No, I played a lot of it.
Number 2 is Centipede Millipede, which makes sense to put them together, but I don't know, maybe not necessarily the best pairing. I feel like they should have split those and put them with 2 other games, because how many Pede games do you really need, in one sitting?
You need both of them. So the other thing we're missing is that these are clearly aimed at adults.
Oh, yeah. And maybe introducing it to younger kids who might have missed it. But.
I mean, but the people that would be introducing those games to kids were the adults that were buying it to play. Like, at this point, I'm sure 95, a lot of adults weren't playing their Game Boy with their Tetris as much as they used to, but maybe they were. But I feel like whether you're buying it for you or your kid, it's the same thing. These are aimed at you these are aimed at adults,
right? And then number 3 is Galaga Galaxian.
Yeah, that's the Namco one.
Right.
And then the 4th one we're doing, Defender and Joust, is Williams. And Williams, so Defender is a very huge game. It's very important. A lot of people who are older than we are point to it as like a defining game of, the golden age of arcades. It's the first original arcade game from Williams, who they were just like the powerhouse of pinball at this point.
Right.
They had made, much like many other companies, had made Pong clones, just as a way, because it was, Pong was making money. Odds are, if you played a Pong machine in the wild in the 70s, it may not have been made by Atari, because everyone was just making them.
Yeah.
But I guess they made one of those. But this was like they're like, okay, let's sit down and get an idea together, and let's release something. So they pulled Eugene Jarvis off of pinballs because he was such a successful pinball engineer. His games did well, his tables did well. So they were like, look, get a team together and figure this out. So what was it? I forgot to mention that Nintendo, the arcade classic series itself was like, they weren't hard to put together. So Nintendo got this all lined up and then released one a month for like 4 months. So this would have been in October, the last one.
So they all came out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
In succession to each other.
Right. Enough time for you to get tired of it and say, hey, here's a new one.
Well, if they're going to do that, they probably should have done one a day.
That's a little mean.
Pew, pew, pew.
Oh,
Shots
come
fired.
on, don't do that. Don't do that, man.
No, yeah, I'll save my my thoughts on that for later. But yeah, so it was their first game, but it was also kind of a first for other arcade reasons, right? Defender?
Yeah. I mean, of course they started out trying to like make a derivative thing. Like they looked at Asteroids and Space Invaders mostly, and tried to emulate those. Asteroids just, like they said, got boring. Or no, Space Invaders was just boring. The Asteroids one, Asteroids is a vector graphics game, and they were having trouble getting it to translate to pixel graphics, so they kind of backed off that. But they realized what they were doing was just copying something else, so they took everything they'd learned, had a huge like brainstorming session, and like slowly the game started to take shape. Things were like, it was rushed. They were trying to get out for an amusement trade show, but like just the ideas that in this game like happened just because people were like, oh, we should try this. No, we should try that. Which is, I guess it's funny how like something that is so considered to be so tight and hard and difficult, is just people adding more and more to it, like a Super Mario Maker level. But it's balanced and good and fun.
Yeah.
And really intricate. As far as like, oh wait, no, it's also the first like horizontally scrolling shooter. That's it.
Yeah.
It does this really cool thing where the screen wraps around, so you can see where you are at all times, like because there's a little radar at the top.
Right.
But you never reach the end and have to turn around and go back, which is a pretty big deal for 1981. It led to many other games, Mario being one of them, just an infinitely scrolling thing. But that idea, like, it seems so understated now, but it was a huge deal at the time.
Totally.
As far as Joust, I mean, it was the guy who was making it didn't want to make another Defender. He was like, what can I set this in? How can I do this? And he took like every other choice. Single screen. It does wrap though. You're riding on a bird that flies. You have a joust. You're a knight. It's like the polar opposite almost.
Right.
But yeah, it was designed as a 2-player game. Joust wasn't the first like 2-player co-op game, but it certainly was the best at that point, and it really popularized the idea. You can tell like a lot of Mario Brothers takes after this game.
Yeah. I can see that with the ostriches and stuff.
Right, the ostriches. But no, the bad guys that you have to stomp on, but then if you don't dispatch them again, they don't bounce away like the eggs do, but you have to dispatch them or they will turn back into a monster and you have to take care of it again.
It's basically Balloon Fight.
It's Balloon Fight, and well, it is Balloon Fight. But right. Mario also has a lot to do with this, I think.
Iwata totally ripped this game off.
No, he was busy ripping off other stuff. Oh, but Balloon Fight is Hal. Yeah. No. I was thinking of
he
I was talking about Mario Brothers. No, sorry.
I changed the subject.
Yeah.
I don't see how this has to do with Mario Bros. Oh. Sorry. The co-op one. I'm thinking of Super. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was. Yeah.
The plumbing one.
Yeah, the arcade plumbing one. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because like the multiple levels and things like that. And the stopping, you have to you slide. Mm-hmm. Same thing in Mario Bros.
Yeah, and once you hurt a bad guy, you have to also hurt that bad guy one more time before that bad guy comes back to life. And,
right.
But yeah, no, the more direct comparison is Balloon Fight, because Balloon Fight is basically a rip-off of this game. But I love Balloon Fight, and I do like Joust. But I've spent way more time with Balloon Fight than I have Joust.
Fair enough. Yeah. It's it doesn't take itself so seriously, but
yeah, so go ahead and so you said you actually had this Kart.
Correct. So, yeah, as far as my history with the game, I did own this as a kid. My parents bought it for us. I'm not sure. They probably just got it real cheap or something. But I just remember playing it. It wasn't one that we would keep in the console very long. We'd maybe pull it out if we're on a road trip and we're kind of bored with what else we had to play. And so this would get maybe 10 minutes of play time, and then all right, done with this, on to the next one.
Yeah, but this never made it into the Super Game Boy very often. This was I'm traveling and I guess I can kill some time.
Right. And as a kid, I never cared about high scores. It wasn't until I got older and I realized it's kind of fun to try to get your highest score in an arcade game. And now I love trying to do that like in Donkey Kong all the time. But back then I didn't care. I wish I did. I wish I would have been like, hey, brothers, look at my highest score in Joust, see if you can beat that. But it just
suck on that egg.
As a kid, I didn't. Oh, I see what you did there. I just didn't really care as a kid about that. So, and without really feeling like I was getting any kind of true level progression, I just kind of got tired of it.
Yeah,
but
it just gets harder.
Right. But as a kid, I will say I think I did have a pretty good appreciation for arcade games as far as like kids in the 90s go, because they were kind of phasing out maybe at that point, maybe not completely,
especially where we grew up.
Yeah, and at least like the older ones like this, where I mean there was still some newer games that were popular, Ninja Turtles and stuff, but
Area 51.
Yeah,
you
stuff like
find
that.
that anywhere, but like not the old stuff. The old stuff was harder to come by.
Yeah, or it was there and just nobody really played it as much. But I remember my first experience with both of these games was on the Atari 2600.
Really?
Yeah, my dad was a big Atari fan, and so he had a big old collection of his games from back in the day, and he would let us play them. And so I'm pretty sure I played them there before I played them on the Game Boy. So at least going into this, I was pretty familiar with what they were.
I'd be interested to see what those versions look like.
I'm pretty sure I have them in my basement.
Okay.
But I've got a couple 2600s down there.
Okay. Well, we'll have to plug that in later.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember them being not terrible. On probably a little less visually good than the Game Boy ones, but not by far though.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. So that was kind of like my first, and I'm sure I played them in the arcades at certain points too, because me and my family were big into the arcades and stuff. Owned a bunch of arcade games over the years, but never these two. Actually, I did own a Midway like multi-arcade thing. It was real cheap, like barely could consider it an arcade game, but it had a bunch of games in one, and it had Defender and Joust and Root Beer Tapper and all these other ones on it. So for a while, I did actually own, quote unquote, an arcade, cabinet with these games on it. But by that point, when I owned it, I just didn't really care as much about these because I had played them so much as a kid that I was more interested in the other games. But these are staples. They're always good. So they're always fun to come back to. I like one more than the other, but I'll wait.
Okay.
And reveal that later.
As far as I go, Defender, I haven't played a lot of Defender in my life. I spent more time with a different Eugene Jarvis game, Robotron.
Nice.
I love me some Robotron.
That's a great game.
Yes, it is. But that is not this game.
Nope.
And like I said, I've spent way more time with Balloon Fight than I have with Joust, but I do love me some Joust. They've got, I believe Joust is at our local barcade.
Yes.
I've spent some time there. My brother creamed me when we were, well, it's co-op, but he lasted way longer and had a much higher score than I did when the last time we played.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't have much experience with these games, but I like Williams games, so.
Yeah, and I mean they're staples. You've probably played them in the past on.
And Defender is notorious for just you walk up to that machine, you're dead in 10 seconds, and so.
Oh yeah.
I've certainly tried, but I've never been very good at it.
Yeah, and these games have been ported. How many times since the Game Boy ports, you think?
I mean, at the same time that they were making the Game Boy port, Jeff Minter was making like Defender 2000.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure these
2000.
were on Advance.
Yeah,
they're probably on.
There's even like a 2002 3D reimagining of Defender. Like these games have been made many, many, many times.
Yeah,
in different ways.
We'd love to keep going, but even all-stars need a break. Doy.
It's a blast from the past. All your favorite arcade games like Asteroids, Centipede, Defender, and Gallagher. So polish up your old moves. You'll need them to survive the arcade classics. Now available in 2-in-1 game packs for Game Boy and Super Game Boy, baby.
Wow. I know I pretty much always say wow after all these commercials, but that's literally what I think of. It's just wow. Okay.
I know that was pretty great, wasn't it?
Yeah, the only comment on that video is WTF did I just watch? And I think that's pretty accurate question. All right, yeah, that today's commercial actually lined up with what we were talking about. Somehow we were able to
That's weird.
Yeah, it's like we did on purpose or something.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, through looking into this episode, researching, we found this commercial, figured what the heck, might as well play it. We like to watch Game Boy commercials here on the show, and so this felt like a fitting one. So
I feel like you and I have had this fear that we're going to run out of really crazy Game Boy commercials, and I don't think we are.
It almost feels like they're just being procedurally generated in the past. Every week, there's just more.
I'm sorry, I'm going back to the past, and I'm an ad exec in the 90s, so I'm the one making these.
And you're just getting better at your job every week.
Yeah, they're gonna get way crazier because now that I have like some kind of reputation after these 3 that we've done, they're gonna start letting me do crazier stuff. Trust me.
So as the creator of this commercial, you decided it would be a good idea to dress
to get Bobby Moynihan to come back to the past with me and play some fat dad on a disco floor.
Yeah, of course. That's what everybody wants.
Oh, man. You remember earlier when we were saying that Nintendo is marketing these at adults?
Yes.
I think nothing short of disco music and pretending to be the not Saturday Night Fever. What is it? Saturday Night Fever?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Pretending that scene is happening. Pretty sure that's just like, come on, play arcade games.
Right. But here's the thing, people. You don't understand. Yeah, he can disco dance, but he's fat.
Oh, yeah. And he's old.
And that's what's funny is he's fat and old. And his belly's hanging out of his
suit that probably fit him in the 70s,
right.
But doesn't anymore.
And he's Italian for some reason.
I guess so. Or is just the announcer Italian?
No, I mean, I like to think that's his voice.
Okay.
The
dancing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, Mario, I guess, Italian.
Right,
maybe.
Right. It all comes full circle.
It's logical.
Right.
It all makes sense.
Right. Mario loves to disco dance.
Definitely. It's actually a pretty polished commercial. It's not the weirdest thing, but it makes sense. Like you said, it's kind of marketed at like, oh, this is what the people, back in the 70s and 80s, this is what they were playing. So it's
they definitely were dancing on top of TVs with arcade games playing on them.
That was probably my favorite part. I thought that was actually kind
of
cool. I'm like, oh man, I would totally go to a place that had
It's true.
screens on the floor playing arcade games on it. And stuff.
Take the game boxes off the disco ball. That just blocks the light.
Yeah, that's poor planning.
Don't do that. Don't actually do that at your club.
Right.
Just saying.
Last thing worth noting is this commercial mentioned, by the announcer that this was also compatible with the Super Game Boy, and so I think they were pushing pretty hard for people to use these for that. I noticed
just for people to be like, one, you can play this on anything, even your Super Nintendo,
right,
in your kid's room. So go in there when they're at school and play Centipede.
Totally. Any logical parent would do that. Yeah, I don't know. I noticed on the box art on the front and back too, it was pushing the Super Game Boy pretty hard, and so I don't know if it had come out like close to when this had released.
Within a year or two.
So it was they printed on the front. Well, that's the thing is because I don't know if we have that written in our show notes. They had like enhanced borders on the Super Game Boy. And I think it was like, so it made it look like you were playing on the arcade machine or whatever.
Real arcade.
And it like had additional colors on that palette that you couldn't get on the Game Boy version.
Right.
Not in the game itself, but the border around it had additional colors that you can't get. Which actually, looking at screenshots of it, it looks really impressive. The border of it. So I was actually pretty impressed. I thought it looked pretty good. So.
Yeah, I'm sure I think Asteroids, that copy got played a lot. The Super Nintendo eventually went up to my parents' room after the 64 showed up, so I played a lot of Asteroids against my parents on our Super Nintendo.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it for the commercial then, don't you?
Oh, you know what? I'll never be done with that commercial, but we can move on.
Brian, why don't we start off by talking about the story with these two games?
Yeah, let's. As the case is with a lot of arcade games, there isn't really much of a narrative to many of them until you get to like Donkey Kong, which kind of, you've got a narrative there. Like, dude's girl's taken, dude wants girl back, bad guy is bad guy. Monkey is bad guy.
Right.
Bad monkey. But I mean, Defender, you can kind of see a bit of a story. So there are aliens that are invading a planet from space, but it's not like as cut and dry as Space Invaders, which is just, you're gonna die. Eventually you're gonna die from these aliens. You have, okay, so there are guys that you have to. Let's back this up. On the surface, there are 10 astronauts that you have to defend from UFOs.
Correct. Yeah.
They can be picked up, by enemy ships, and you can save them. So you're trying to protect this planet from invading aliens.
Okay. That's honestly more of a storyline than we're probably going to get from Joust, I would imagine.
Yeah, it actually is.
Yeah. Okay.
But these enemy ships can shoot at you, but they also fly close to the ground and abduct astronauts.
Dude, what? Yeah, just keep explaining the whole. Let's just do the whole how the game works, the mechanics, because it kind of coincides with the story, I guess. I was kind of joking when I said to explain the story because I realized there isn't really one. But
if you lose all of your astronauts, then like the real climax happens and the planet explodes, and you spend the rest of the game fleeing from the now mutant enemies, which I think is what they call them.
They suck,
dude. They're awful.
Yeah.
See, I had heard, a long time ago that real high score players just kill all the astronauts at the beginning and spend the rest of the time running from the aliens, and that's how you get your high score. Huh. I don't know how they do it, because those things are just like right on top of you, immediately.
Oh yeah, yeah. As a kid, I completely had no idea that those things on the ground were like other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just shoot them, and then the place would blow up, and I'm like, "Yeah, I did it! I did the thing."
Level 2.
Yeah. So, just not necessarily the most well explained. I get that it's an arcade game, and they're not gonna have cutscenes or like really lay it out for you, but those things don't look like people.
No.
And I had no idea, and they explode. So when I shoot them, they explode, and I'm like, "All right, that must be what I need to do."
But it does reward you that if you shoot the astronaut, nothing happens. The UFO just moves on and tries to do something else. But if you shoot the UFO, you see 250 points pop up next to it.
Right.
And then the astronaut floats back to the surface. And that's kind of your, okay, so these guys are, my buddies, or it behooves me to save them, I guess.
See, grown-up me, that makes sense.
Right.
Kid me, I'm an idiot, and I'm eating rocks, dude.
What about the flashing numbers? You don't just be like automatically go, "Oh, that's good."
Nah.
You can't. Okay.
I was dumb.
Okay.
But
well, I'm glad you're better.
I had a spaceship and I could shoot lasers. That's all that mattered. So.
I don't know, as far as a story for Joust goes.
Yeah, I mean, you play as a knight who rides an ostrich and wields a jousting lance. Then you move left and right, and you basically are going up against other jousters on their mounts, and you just have to be higher up in the air than them to kill them. And
you can tell that by the lance. If your lance is just higher than their lance, then you're good.
Right. And yeah, there's other various characters. You got your what is it? Fire golems or golems? Is that what I called them?
I don't remember what they're all called. There are supposedly 3 types of bad guys.
There's like dinosaurs. There's pterodactyls.
There's a pterodactyl
for some reason.
There's a death hand that tries to pull you into the swamp or something.
Yeah, that's like I think that's the fire golem.
Yeah. Okay.
Or lava golem. It's something like that. No, I want to know more about this world though, because apparently there's some universe where there's knights who ride around on ostriches, killing each other with like lances or whatever, and they fight off pterodactyls and like big fire golem hands
And collect eggs.
and kill each other to take the eggs. And it's like, okay, so this is like a weird like alternate like reality place. And
I wonder if there's a comic book out there somewhere with
there might be
it's set in this universe.
Yeah.
And if not, then we need to stop recording and start making that comic book.
I'm sure some, pardon the nerd out there, has taken Joust and created its own expanded universe, I would imagine, over the years. Whether or not they work for Midway or
No,
not.
I would think no, they
But
don't.
So yeah, kind
Work
of
for Subway.
doesn't really need a narrative, just kind of 3, 2, 1, here you go, good luck.
Get those eggs.
But yeah, so as you play through Joust, the levels kind of change as you clear them out. Because with Defender, you don't really have to kill all the aliens to move on to the next level. Whereas in Joust, it's all about Battle Royale.
Yeah.
Last man standing.
And then when one's gone, another one pops up, and that keeps happening until they stop popping up.
Right. And so as you go through the levels in Joust, the different things change. At the beginning, you can't fall in the lava. And then
Yeah, I
eventually-
think that's kind of a way to show you the mechanics of the egg, because once the lava shows up, the eggs will fall in the lava and you can't get them again.
Right.
But they're worth points, and the more eggs you get in a level, the higher the more those eggs are worth. And so at the first level, they can be on the ground just laying there because there's no lava yet. So it teaches you, hey, these things if you don't pick them up, the guy will hatch out of them and try and kill you.
Yep. All right, so let's talk through some game mechanics. I feel like most people know these games. We don't have to go super in depth, but Joust, you just got to keep pressing, was it A to flap?
The flap button.
Yes, excuse me, press flap to continue.
Yes.
As the game tells you.
It is a 2-directional joystick in the arcade, but here we have a D-pad.
Right.
But you only go left and right and flap. Like
Mhm.
pressing up and down doesn't really do anything.
Right.
I tried. I was like, maybe I can, hover if I hold down, kind of like in Mario World when you swim. If you hold like down, you'll just kind of float there for a little bit. But no, nothing of the sort. It's just left, right, flap.
So very simple. The game honestly works really well for the Game Boy due to the fact that it's so simple. I mean, you don't even use the B button, right?
No,
Defender does.
Defender has a bomb.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these games are like perfect for the Game Boy. I feel like they were kind of made for it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is nice. It's not overly complicated, and you kind of get the hang of it. So that's nice. I like that. All right, so let's see. I'm trying to think. All right, so basically, once you power up this game, you are presented with 2 arcade cabinets. So you can choose, obviously, the 2 games available, Joust and Defender, and then you go into kind of a sub-menu where you have 1-player, 2-player, and options. So with 2-player, how does that work, Brian? Can you explain to us how 2-player works with these?
2-player, I don't think you can hurt each other, but
It's not at the same time.
Oh, and Joust and Defender.
Both.
And both?
That's what I read.
Oh, really?
I haven't tried it, but
yeah, that would make sense because you have to use a link cable, and maybe you can't play simultaneously.
I don't think it supports it.
Okay.
I think you take turns.
Well, that
both
makes
games.
that makes Joust kind of weird. Defender is that makes sense. Once one
Yeah.
person dies, the next person gets their turn.
I think that's how that's how it is in Joust as well, which is not how it should be. But
Okay, then why are there link cable?
what's the
why is there
point?
link cable support for this?
Yeah, what is the
If
point?
you've each got the game, why don't you just play Defender next to each other and be like, I'm still alive and you're dead.
Right, or I have a higher score at the end of my round than
Right.
you do.
Yeah.
So
Look,
you can,
I got more astronauts left. You've only got 6.
because I guess people want the opportunity to watch their friend or sibling die on their screen.
I mean, if you don't remember or if you weren't playing Game Boy in those days, it is tough to look at your friend's screen while they're playing on that thing.
That is true. That is true.
So maybe it's just, I want to be able to watch him, so I'll plug the link cable in.
Yeah, and that don't take this as I could be completely wrong. It's just what I read. I didn't get a chance to buy 2 copies of this and link up with Brian. So this is all just what I'm research. So I could be wrong, but I thought that was interesting and worth pointing out. Now the third thing is the options in these games. Now this has to be, at least in my experience, the coolest and or like most well functioning options menu in a Game Boy game that I can think of off the top of my head. There's all kinds of stuff in here. So if you ever play these games, you got to go into the options on these.
Well, it's like having a dip switch on an actual arcade.
It really is.
Machine. You can change the lives and stuff.
Yeah.
What else can you do?
Lives. There's difficulty. You can turn the music on.
Yeah, that's good.
Which we haven't talked about that yet. We'll get there. You can invert or revert. I don't know. The visuals. So instead of having a white background with a black ship, you could have a black background with a white ship.
Yeah, because for some reason Defender defaults as white background, and that makes no earthly sense to me.
Right. Earthly sense.
Ha!
Because it's space.
But it's not real. It could be any planet, man. You don't know.
I know, but it doesn't make earthly sense because they're not on Earth.
Okay.
Anyway, other than that, I know in Joust you can go from classic to, what was the word, Brian? Modern or something like that.
No, was it like modified or?
Yeah, it was something like that. But it basically changes the setup of the game. I don't think Defender had that option. I didn't look. Did you?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well,
I think I was too busy like focusing on like, hey, I can invert the color and turn the music on. I forget.
I remember as a kid, I loved inverting the color. I just thought it was so cool that I could do that. And then when I got a Game Boy Color and I could pretty much do that with any game, I was like, whoa, this is awesome.
Dude,
it's so different. Anyway, so yeah, the options, it's usually something I overlook because usually you go in there and it's like audio, maybe difficulty. And so especially with Defender, I highly recommend this game on easy, at least starting out, unless you're like a pro Defender player. It just makes it the aliens a little less aggressive, and you actually can play for 30 to 40 seconds before getting killed rather than 5 to 8 seconds before you get killed. It's way better. And I know we're not talking about the music, but the fact that it defaults to no music
it's kind of insane.
Is weird. And so you have to turn it on, and yeah, it's worth turning on, I think. So
I don't know if the original arcades had music. I don't think so.
No, I looked into it.
That would have made the frame rate go way down.
Yeah, they were a little bit older, early 80s.
Yeah.
And so, so it just wasn't really a thing. All right, let's talk about visuals here. Probably not a lot to hit on, but it's worth mentioning at least briefly. Brian, what did you think about the visuals in this game?
I mean, they do a decent job. Defender in the arcade kind of has this like almost blur to it. Like, not actually, it doesn't get like all, the refresh rate's kind of okay, but it just like, it's going so fast. You're shooting lasers everywhere. Everything is kind of, to the untrained eye, like, what the hell is going on here? But on the Game Boy, it's kind of clean. The laser that shoots out is like a long laser beam. But it's very clear and defined. That not that either or is a good or bad thing. Just it looks a little different from the original because it's by virtue of the technology it's on. But everything is like, I don't know, it works for it. I was surprised. I also was not playing on a small Game Boy screen, so I'm not really quite sure how it would look playing on the handheld.
Yeah, we need to start doing that. I'm gonna bring a OG Game Boy to work so we can at least take a look at it and see how it looks.
Yeah,
in black and white. So, as far what I think, my thoughts, the games themselves look all right. Once you hit the upgraded Joust version, there's like a much more complex and dynamic, background. Where it has like mountains and clouds and things, and so it looks a little bit more visually pleasing, whereas the original is a little bland. Defender has some background stuff, like a couple like mountain things.
Yeah, it doesn't. It will tell you where you are in the level, because it's one landscape, but that you wrap around. So if you played enough, you'll be like, oh, okay, well I'm here, and there should be a couple of astronauts I left around here the last time I got here. So
yeah,
but it doesn't. I was staying. I often forget the mountain doesn't do anything to you.
Right.
So I was trying to stay away from it like you would in any like side-scrolling shoot 'em up.
Right.
But yeah, that doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, and then the other thing that is kind of a negative, kind of a restriction to the console, which I saw other people talking about this online, is in Defender, you're looking up at your indicator above, and it shows you where you are in relation to everybody else. And in the Game Boy version, they're just all black pixels, and so your character doesn't look any different than the other pixels. I think in the arcade you are a different color, so you can tell which pixel you are. I mean, granted, your pixel kind of stays in the center the entire time, but it's still a little
tough to decipher. Like, is that my guy? Is that my guy being carried up by a UFO? Like, a little bit more help would be nice. It's tough to completely look at that map and know exactly what's going on when you're not used to it.
And so that was really the only thing I felt like the Game Boy actually restricted or made difficult. The things that I did find visually impressive, one, I think the arcade machines at the beginning look pretty good. They're pretty cool. I appreciate that they did that because they literally could just have put text, Joust, Defender, pick one.
But they want to take you back, man. They want you to feel like you're in an old arcade hall.
It's literally what they're trying to do. They're like, hey, you have these 2 arcade games, pick one.
All you have to do is add a smoke machine to the Game Boy, and then you feel like you're there.
I never played any arcade games or arcades that had smoke machines.
Oh, well, they're called adults that smoke cigarettes constantly.
The adults are the smoke machines.
Right. I'm just saying the Game Boy had a smoke machine. It would feel really authentic.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I get your joke now.
All right.
It's much funnier after you explained it to me.
Right. See? There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, so I like that. I think that's something even in like more common nowadays when they do like arcade collections, they'll have like, oh, check out the arcade cabinet. Look at and you can like rotate it and look at the artwork on the cabinet and stuff, which obviously you can't do that on here, but they're trying to kind of give you a little bit of an experience with that. So
like they'll try and make the game screen look like a CRT filter when it's got like little bend to the TV glass, so.
Yeah, so I think that's always been kind of a thing is with these collections, they try to make you feel like you're a part of the game. You're actually playing the arcade version.
Yeah.
And playing it on this Super Game Boy definitely does that because you can see the control panel and the bezel and you can even see the marquee above it and stuff. So they do a really good job trying to make it feel like you're there, even though I didn't really care about that stuff as a kid, but it's a cool touch now. Last thing visually, the game over screens on both games are pretty cool.
Yeah.
The Joust one has like the hand coming out of the fire or the lava
or mud, or
I assume lava. And then the Defender one is some person with like sunglasses on being like,
and like a space afro.
It's so weird. I don't know if those are from the arcade or if they made those for this.
That was what I was wondering. But
I should have looked it up.
Yeah, I didn't check into that. That Defender guy is pretty great.
Yeah, I don't know why he's wearing sunglasses or has like an afro thing. I don't know what it all is, but it still looks really cool. There's a lot of pixels involved. If you blow it up like on a big screen or something, it might look kind of weird. But on a smaller Game Boy, it actually looked pretty detailed and pretty good. So I did like those. I appreciated that I assume they made those for this, but I could be wrong. So audio, we should talk about that. Not a lot. At first, I literally thought there was zero music in this game, and I was like, uh-oh, what are we going to do? Because usually we like to play some audio in these episodes, and I was freaking out that we were going to have nothing to play. It was just going to be silent. But oddly enough, as we mentioned earlier, you just got to turn it on.
Check out the options menu.
So once you do that, it basically plays during gameplay. So there's really no intro music once you turn the game on. In fact, Ryan, when you were playing it, I'm like, you're like, I don't think the sound's working. I'm like, no, there's just nothing until you start the game.
Yeah, pretty much.
Obviously, if you play with no music, you still have your sound effects and everything, and those are relatively true to the source material as much as the Game Boy would allow. And so that stuff was all on point. But yeah, basically you get 4 or 5 tracks, I think. There's usually there's like 2 or 3 per game. Brian, real briefly, just kind of explain maybe a little bit the style of the music. I mean, they'll be playing throughout the episode so people can hear it, but
What Joust has kind of a, I don't know, like old medieval feel to it.
Yep, I would say so.
Just, I don't know, based on the virtue that these are chicken riding knights. So
yeah, pretty fitting, I would say.
That goes along with the medieval theme. You remember more the Defender music.
Yeah, the Defender
than I do.
music is more just kind of like your typical sci-fi orchestra, like marching, kind of straightforward. I don't know. It's got a more of a spacey sci-fi feel. It fits really well with the whole Defender thing.
Yeah, this probably would have been made by Williams for this game, like for the Game Boy game, unless other home versions had added music at some point.
Maybe they just based it off it. Yeah, I completely expected these to not be very good. I assumed they'd be like really, not good sounding. They'd have kind of like the NES crappy set of music style. But yeah. I was actually pretty surprised. I was pretty blown away. I thought it was way better than I thought it was going to be.
No, they're fun. They're fun little songs.
And so I'm glad it's there. It's kind of unfortunate that they're not on by default because it's just weird playing in silence, I think. But it is kind of true to the source material of the original arcade versions. Mm-hmm. So I get it, but I kind of wish it was on by default. And if you were a purist, you could just turn it off.
Whatever, millennial.
Yeah, jeez.
You just want everything to be done for you and like to have music to distract you.
I have to go to the options and turn it on. No, I mean it makes sense because I go into the options anyways, turn the difficulty down. I usually invert it, and if I'm playing Joust, I switch to the more modern version because it's bigger, more open, and way more fun. So I'm already in the options anyways, so I might as well just go for it. So
you invert Defender.
Yeah.
Okay.
I prefer to.
Yeah.
I think it looks better, but people have their preferences. So.
Yeah. All
right. Anything else audio wise? I kind of briefly touched on the sound effects. I think they made it work.
It's I don't know the games well enough to know like what each sound effect means because a lot of times in these old games they are there to help telegraph like if you hear something's about to that means this is about to happen or this is going to happen or whatever. But
yeah.
So I don't know the games well enough to speak to that.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're under our closing thoughts.
Yeah.
Would you like me to go first, or would you like to go first?
Hey, these are classic games, and I actually prefer this. The little time I've spent with it, I'd rather pick this one back up than the Asteroids Missile Command one I had.
Wow.
And I played a lot of that. But yeah, I like Midway games better, or not Midway, sorry, Williams games. What? They eventually become the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
But I do love me some Joust. So
yeah, I think it would be a way better game if they could have put all of these arcade classics into one cartridge. I realize that's completely ridiculous and not probably possible.
Yeah.
Limiting to 2 games per cart is a little restricting.
Also, you can make more money with 4 of them.
Totally, and maybe that's part of it. It probably is.
And, well, Namco probably doesn't want to share their profits with Atari and Williams, so
I'm sure it's sticky. But that's the thing with these arcade games, especially for kids. If you're trying to market it to kids, it's easy to lose interest with these ones that are very repetitive.
Yeah.
And so, as we mentioned, these are just better in short stints. It's a good one to, turn on, maybe play through both of them once or twice, and then set it down, maybe come back to it eventually. So not a very long lasting, not a very, you'll get way more hours out of Pokemon, obviously, than you would these. But they're still good. If you enjoyed the original ports, it's worth having. I would honestly like to own the Galaga Galaxian one because I love those. I'm a big Missile Command fan. I don't know if I would like the Game Boy version as much. But
it's fine. I played a lot of it, so.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad they exist. It's nice to have an arcade presence on this console. I think kind of moving forward, there was a arcade version of something on pretty much every console became an easy let's put out a collection of arcade games. And so this was, I don't know if this was the start of it, but it was at least as far as calling it a collection or whatever. I think this was kind of one of the first things to start that movement of let's not just port these to the Game Boy. But I mean, there's some other arcade Game Boy Color games out there besides these, but a lot of them are not ports. They're more like new versions. Like I think there's a Game Boy Color Galaga. There's an Asteroids that is real good. So there's some other arcade ones, more of them like the remaking of it than just a port. But
there's also like an unofficial fifth one of these that's Super Breakout and Battlezone. But it doesn't carry the.
It doesn't have a number, but it is an arcade classic.
Yeah, it's more Atari games,
and it visually kind of looks like the other four, which is weird. But they didn't give it a number, and it came out like a year later. It was really weird.
I'd love to see what a Battlezone looks like on a Game Boy.
Yeah, right.
To see, maybe they have like a free play mode, and I can finally make it to the volcano. That'd be cool
if you're good enough.
Yeah.
But anyway, as far as my final thoughts go, yeah, it's a good little port. I think these two games work pretty well. Like I said, on the Game Boy, they don't have a lot of extra buttons that you're missing, even though the original Defender had like 5 buttons on it.
But they just mapped that to because 2 of them were directional buttons. They were forward and back and stuff like that. I do love the way that Defender's like physics kind of work. It's slidey, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually kind of fun to just fly backwards and shoot something. So
totally.
And now it's time for this week's song of the week. All right, so our music for this week is from Super RC Pro-Am for the Game Boy, obviously.
Yeah.
Made by Rare.
Woo, Rare!
So, did you have experience with either of the RC Pro-Am games?
I never owned either of them as a kid. So no, not really.
Okay. Isometric kart racer.
Yeah.
Before kart racers.
Yeah.
I never played the NES one, but I played a lot of this one.
Okay.
But I know we're going to be getting to Super RC Pro-Am at some point on this show in a Super Game Boy episode. So, but I mean, I don't know. It's repetitive music, but I think it's good. It's got gets to the point. It's got a good little hook to it.
Yeah.
It's a very short hook, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really like this one. There's like a part where there's like a really low bassy like I wish there was more of that.
Yeah,
I really like that.
I want it to like go on forever, but then I probably get sick of it after 4 measures. So
yeah.
But yeah, I like it. It just kind of pops real quick. It's right there, and then it all starts over again.
You know what I've noticed with our song of the weeks, we've been picking these like real like head boppers.
Yeah.
We haven't found anything like pretty or like actually kind of like symphonic. I don't know. I feel like
I wonder if we ever will. Stay tuned.
Oh,
I don't know.
Was that I didn't realize we were doing that. That's cool. Yeah. So I was talking with Brian the other day when we were talking about song of the weeks, and we were saying we like Game Boy music, but we're not the pros when it comes to the best Game Boy music out there. Maybe we are somewhat pro, but not the pros. And so we were saying that we should get some more people's input. So if you have a suggestion of a song that you would like to hear on the song of the week, let us know in any way, however you want to do that. If you want to comment on the YouTube, if you want to email us or tweet at us at the Nintendo Village, we can.
What's our email? That might be the best way to do it.
Yeah, email's good too. I think it's clay@thenintendovillage.com.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's just my name at the Nintendo Village. I need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's right. But yeah, feel free to email us, give us suggestions, because we're literally going to play a random Game Boy song each week. So we're welcome to suggestions.
It's one of the commercial breaks every week.
Yeah, so. Without fail. So we would love to hear any suggestions you might have. So yeah.
I'm good. I'm good.
Close this out?
Yeah. So, hey out there, Internet. This is Brian here.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us for this episode. If you want, you can find more of our episodes on thenintendovillage.com. And we are also on the Nintendo Village YouTube as well as iTunes. So join us next episode for more Strictly Game Boy.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, check out some of our other videos, and visit thenintendovillage.com, your home for everything Nintendo.